At Jukru Hospital, Dr. Mutta, a dedicated and hardworking physician, has been managing an intense workload due to a critical shortage of medical staff. Her schedule, spanning 16-hour shifts over consecutive weeks, has left her physically and mentally exhausted, compromising her ability to rest and recover.
A lot of boring math later.
During one afternoon, Dr. Mutta was called to attend to Mr. Marakut, a 50-year-old male admitted with severe kidney failure or the chronic renal insufficiency. His condition required careful management, particularly regarding medication choices, to avoid exacerbating his kidney impairment. On the afternoon of the tragedy, due to impaired cognition caused by her hectic schedule, Dr. Mutta reviewed his case and prescribed medication to address his pain and high blood pressure without thoroughly examining the patient's medical history. Unfortunately, the medications ibuprofen, a common pain reliever, and enalapril, a blood pressure medication, proved unsuitable for Mr. Marakut's fragile condition. Both drugs, while effective in general, pose significant risks for someone with advanced kidney disease. Ibuprofen can further reduce kidney function, while enalapril can cause dangerous spikes in potassium levels, leading to irregular heart rhythms. Later that day, his condition worsened, his kidneys failed completely, and his potassium levels spiked, causing a severe heart arrhythmia. Despite the medical team's best efforts, including CPR and emergency interventions, Mr. Marakut went into cardiac arrest and could not be revived. He passed away.
Welcome back to the CMM126 News. You are here with me, reporter Lamud. Our top story tonight involves a tragic incident at Jukru Hospital where a patient death was caused by a critical medical error due to the exhaustion of the doctor. So let me start discussing about this case. So it happened when a Dr. Mutta, who had overwhelmed by a long shift caused by a staff shortage, prescribed inappropriate medication for a patient with a severe kidney failure. The patient, Mr. Marakut, was suffering from a chronic renal insufficiency, which is a condition that requires careful medication management. Despite the complexity of his case, Dr. Mutta, who had been working for like 16 hours days for weeks, prescribed ibuprofen and enalapril, which are the medications contraindicated for kidney failure. Ibuprofen can worsen kidney damage, while enalapril can dangerously raise the potassium level, leading to the heart arrhythmias. Tragically, Mr. Marakut went into a cardiac arrest, and despite the emergency effort, he passed away. The hospital has launched an investigation and expert warned that Dr. Mutta's exhaustion impaired judgment, leading to the fatal mistake. This case highlights the urgent need for the improved working condition for the healthcare professionals. Our with Marakut family will keep you updated on this developing story. And for now, I will pass it on to reporter Pinyaphat Ruangphirakul, who is here to discuss the legal aspect involved in this situation. Thank you, reporter Lamud, for a clear explanation of this situation. So now you are here with me, Pinyaphat Ruangphirakul, and I'll provide you some details of this legal aspect involved in this situation, along with related laws. So I don't want to keep you guys wait any longer, so let's get right into it. Since Dr. Mutta has been working with exhausted condition for 16 hours due to excessive shifts caused by hospital staff shortage. This leads to the prescription error that were contraindicated for the patient's condition. Unfortunately, Mr. Strawberry Maragot's passed away after complication. What legal problems are related to this case? First, this case highlights the legal problems and issues related to medical negligence resulting from excessive workloads and fatigue, hospital management, and duty of care. Dr. Mutta was assigned 16-hour shift consecutively for weeks. The mental and physical stress accumulated from these relentless working hours impaired the decision-making and cognitive function, which significantly contributed to her medical mistakes, ultimately causing the patient's death. Dr. Mutta breached her duty of care, a legal obligation to avoid causing harm to others, and violated the principle of non-maleficence by negligently prescribing medication without thoroughly investigating the patient's medical history. On the other hand, the hospital failed to adhere to the employment contract and violated labor laws by neglecting to provide adequate rest periods and by exceeding the legally permitted working limits of 48 hours per week. The doctor's negligence may lead to vicarious liability for the hospital as it failed to meet the standard of providing a safe and supportive working environment. In order to conclude her judgment, there are various factors needed to determine in this case. According to Section 291, negligence is when someone doesn't act with the care a reasonable person would do in the same situation. In this case, the doctor prescribed the wrong medicines because they didn't check the patient's history properly. That counts as negligence. It's also similar to Thai tort law. Within Section 420, it says that people are responsible for damages caused by negligence. If the wrong prescription caused harm, the family can sue for things like medical bills, funeral costs, and emotional pain. Also, Section 437 also applies here because medications are considered dangerous and not being careful with them can lead to the liability. On top of that, labor laws, as known as Labor Protection Act, come into play. The doctor was overworked and the hospital didn't provide proper working conditions. This could have contributed to the error, making the hospital partly responsible for not enforcing rules to prevent staff burnout. Finally, if the doctor's actions are deemed negligent, they could face consequences like losing their medical license. The Medical Council of Thailand can investigate and take action from warnings to permanent license revocation, depending on the severity of the case.
Apparently, there are quite a few numbers of provisions to consider before deciding Dr. Mutta as a wrongdoer. Last but not least, I will pass on the mic to reporter Augustus to provide fair solutions to this issue.
Our reporter, Ogusu, has been kidnapped by the Medical Student Association for their work. Therefore, his clone, All Good, will be reporting the solution instead. When it comes to solving problems or issues with this tragic situation and others that are similar, addressing which Thai law was used and proposing necessary changes play a crucial part in resolving the problem. Thus, examining the root causes, which include systemic challenges in healthcare, such as the responsibility of healthcare providers, is one of many ways to tackle this obstacle. Medical malpractice, under Section 420 of the Civil and Commercial Code, makes individuals accountable for damages brought on by misconduct, including negligence that causes injury or death and will result in civil liability. If Dr. Muta's actions are deemed negligent, she could face legal consequences. However, mitigating factors such as extreme fatigue due to systemic overwork should be considered in her defense. This is strongly linked to the mental health and burnout prevention programs available. According to the Labor Protection Act BE 2541, 1998, a policy sets limits on working hours to safeguard employee well-being. In healthcare, however, overtime often exceeds statutory limits. The hospital's failure to manage staff workload may violate these laws, especially if proper rest periods are not provided. It also states that mandated paid breaks should be available for healthcare professionals under labor laws, ensuring time for rest during long shifts. To better apply these programs and mandatory rests, penalties or fines can be imposed on hospitals that have ignored or failed to notice whether their staff's conditions and well-being are at a safe level due to the employer's negligence in staffing. But rather than paying these damages back to their staff, the hospital could also use them as a sort of investment in the first place. Incentives could offer more doctors and medical staff from other areas to high-demanding areas, reducing the problem of staff shortage. The Hospital Facilities Act, BE 2541, 1998, already mandates the minimum doctor-to-patient ratios, ensuring hospitals hire sufficient staff to prevent overwork. Increasing funding and personnel for the Ministry of Public Health to regularly inspect the hospitals and enforce compliance with staffing laws can secure the ethical obligations to protect medical staff by maintaining reasonable workloads. Another proposed solution can also be the introduction of legislation similar to the EU's Working Time Directive, capping weekly work hours for healthcare professionals to prevent fatigue-related mistakes and errors. However, such implementation is currently not recommended. Statistically speaking, Thailand's doctor-to-population ratio was around 1 doctor to 1,500 people in 2023, which is considered extremely high based on the World Health Organization's standard ratio of 1 doctor per 1,000 people. Therefore, the key to solving this major drawback is to increase investments in medical education to expand the pool of qualified healthcare workers over the long term, minimizing the value of the ratio and bringing Thailand closer to the international standards set by WHO. By applying existing Thai laws, along with introducing reforms to address systemic issues, the healthcare system can reduce preventable errors, better support its workers, and prevent similar tragedies in the future for the customers.